Here's a question that keeps people up at night. How much money do you actually need to retire? Ask 10 financial experts and you'll get 12 different answers. 1 million, 2 million, 25 times your annual expenses, 80% of your pre-retirement income, the 4% rule, the 3% rule. It's enough to make anyone give up and just hope for the best. But here's what nobody tells you. Most of those rules are outdated. Some are completely wrong. And the real answer depends on factors most calculators ignore. In this video, we'll cut through the confusion. Here's the thing about retirement advice. Most of it is built on rules that were created decades ago for a completely different economy. The most famous one is the $1 million benchmark. You've heard it 1,000 times. Save $1 million and you're set. Except nobody can tell you where that number actually came from. It's not based on your expenses, your lifestyle, or your location. It's a round number that sounds impressive. That's it. $1 million in Manhattan is poverty. $1 million in rural Tennessee might be luxury. The number itself is meaningless without context. Then there's the 4% rule. This one sounds more scientific because it has math behind it. The idea is simple. Save enough so that withdrawing 4% per year covers your expenses, and your money should last 30 years. It was developed by a financial advisor named William Bengen in 1994, based on historical stock and bond returns. And in 1994, it made sense. Bond yields were around 7 to 8%. Inflation was moderate. The average retirement lasted maybe 20 years because people died younger. Fast forward to 2026. Bond yields have been crushed for over a decade. Inflation just went through a historic spike, and life expectancy keeps climbing, meaning your money needs to last 30, maybe 35 years. Many financial researchers now suggest 3% or even 2.8% is safer. That's not a minor adjustment. If you need $50,000 per year, the 4% rule says save $1.25 million. The 3% rule says save $1.67 million. That's a $420,000 difference based on which outdated rule you follow. So what actually works? Here's the framework that cuts through the noise. Forget income replacement. Forget arbitrary benchmarks. The only number that matters is your actual annual spending in retirement. Not what you earn now, what you'll spend then. This is where most people get it wrong. They hear, replace 80% of your pre-retirement income and use their current salary as the baseline. But your salary includes taxes, retirement contributions, commuting costs, work clothes, and a dozen other expenses that vanish when you stop working. Your actual spending in retirement might be 60% of your current income, or it might be 90% if you plan to travel extensively. The generic percentages are useless. You need your number. Here's how to find it. Start with your current monthly expenses. Subtract the costs that disappear in retirement, like your commute, payroll taxes, and retirement contributions. Add the costs that increase, primarily healthcare and leisure. That's your baseline annual spending. Now multiply by 25 for a moderate estimate or 30 for a conservative one. That multiplication factor accounts for the withdrawal rate. Multiplying by 25 is essentially the 4% rule. Multiplying by 30 is closer to 3.3%, which builds in more safety. Let me make this concrete. Say you determine your retirement spending will be $48,000 per year. Multiply by 25 and you get $1.2 million. Multiply by 30 and you get $1.44 million. That's your target range before adjustments. But we're not done. There are 3 variables that will shift your numbers significantly. First, healthcare. According to Fidelity's 2024 retiree healthcare cost estimate, the average 65-year-old couple will need approximately $315,000 for healthcare expenses throughout retirement. That's not a typo. And it doesn't include long-term care. If you're retiring before Medicare eligibility at 65, add private insurance costs, which can run $15,000 to $25,000 per year per person. Second, Social Security. The average monthly Social Security benefit in 2024 was about $1,900. For a couple both receiving benefits, that's potentially $45,000 per year. You can subtract your expected benefit from your annual need, but be realistic. Benefits may be reduced for early claiming, and the system's long-term solvency remains uncertain. Use the Social Security Administration's calculator for your personalized estimate. Third, inflation. The $48,000 you need today will feel like $65,000 in 15 years at just 3% annual inflation. Your investments need to outpace inflation, not just match it. Let's recalculate with these factors. You need $48,000 annually. You expect $30,000 from Social Security. Your gap is $18,000 per year. Multiply that gap by 28 for safety, and you get $504,000. Then add a $200,000 healthcare buffer. Your adjusted target is approximately $704,000 in invested assets. That's a completely different number than the arbitrary million you started with. And it's based on your actual life. Now, you might be thinking you've got your number figured out, but here's where most retirement plans fall apart. Having the right number doesn't protect you from having the wrong timing. There's a phenomenon called sequence of returns risk, and it ruins more retirements than bad savings habits. Here's how it works. The stock market's long-term average return is around 10% annually, but that average hides brutal swings. If you retire into a market crash and need to withdraw money while your portfolio is down 30%, you're not just losing money, you're permanently impairing your ability to recover. You're selling low when you need the money most, and those shares will never compound again. A 2022 study from the National Bureau of Economic Research found that retiring into a bear market can reduce your sustainable withdrawal rate by up to 1.5 percentage points. That means someone who thought they could safely withdraw 4% might actually need to limit themselves to 2.5% to avoid running out of money. The difference between retiring in 2007 versus 2009 could be hundreds of thousands of dollars in lifetime security. Then there's the healthcare shock. The $315,000 average healthcare cost I mentioned earlier is just that. An average. Long-term care can obliterate that number entirely. According to Genworth's 2023 Cost of Care survey, the median annual cost of a private nursing home room exceeds $108,000 per year. A 3-year stay, which is about the average for those who need such care, could drain $324,000 on its own. One spouse's health crisis can consume both spouses' retirement savings. And here's the risk nobody wants to talk about. Longevity. Living too long isn't supposed to be a problem, but financially, it absolutely is. If you plan for a 25-year retirement and you live 35 years, those extra 10 years can devastate a portfolio that was built for a shorter timeline. A 65-year-old woman today has about a 50% chance of living past 85. A 65-year-old couple has roughly a 50% chance that at least one of them will live past 90. Your money needs to last longer than you think. This is where the one more year trap comes in. When faced with all this uncertainty, many people just keep working. One more year to pad the savings, one more year to feel secure, and then another year, and another. Studies show that workers consistently underestimate when they'll retire because retirement feels scarier than working. But here's the problem. You're trading years of health for hypothetical security. And you might be waiting for a feeling of enough that never comes. Now you might be thinking, if something goes wrong, I can always go back to work. And that sounds reasonable. But research from the Employee Benefit Research Institute shows that nearly half of retirees leave work earlier than planned, often due to health problems, layoffs, or caregiving responsibilities. The backup plan of returning to work is far less reliable than people assume. You can't count on being able to earn your way out of a retirement shortfall. So what do you actually do with all this? Here's your action framework. Step 1. Calculate your true annual expenses using last year's spending as a baseline. Subtract work-related costs. Add realistic healthcare and leisure estimates. This is your core number. Step 2. Multiply that number by 28 to 30 for your baseline target. Then add a $150,000 to $250,000 healthcare buffer, depending on your risk tolerance and family history. Step 3. Subtract your expected Social Security benefit, reduced by 15 to 20% if you want to build in systemic uncertainty. The number you land on is your number, not a generic benchmark, not a rule from 1994, your specific target based on your specific life. And here's the mindset shift that changes everything. The goal isn't to hit a magic number and stop. The goal is to build enough flexibility that you have choices. Enough that you can weather a bad market, absorb a health shock, and still live with dignity. The number isn't a finish line, it's a foundation. The families who retire successfully aren't the ones who saved the most. They're the ones who understood their actual needs, built in real buffers, and preserved their flexibility. You can't predict the future, but you can refuse to let arbitrary rules make your decisions for you. Now you have a method, not a myth. The question is, what you're going to do about it. If this video helped you see retirement differently, hit that subscribe button and give it a thumbs up.